everyone. Welcome to DSSBreak. It's really great to have you with us today. I'm Anna Annison. If you guys are new, the founder of Data Science Salon. And today I'm streaming directly from our headquarters, which is beautifully located in the heart of Miami, just a few blocks away from the design district. And it's actually really dark now. So that's why I have this bright light, because it's raining outside, but it's usually sunny. And we're here live every week to discuss the world of data science, AI, and machine learning. And we chat about unique experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. And today I'm really excited to welcome Lauren Burke-McCarthy, Senior Data Science Lead at Further, who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in deploying AI and data-driven solutions across many different industries. And Lauren also leads community efforts as head of women in analytics and also hosts the wonderful WIA After Hours podcast. And Lauren is really, really active in the space, and her approach to data science combines deep technical expertise with a keen focus on strategic implementation and also community development, which is super important. So thank you so much for joining us today for this DSSBreak episode, Lauren. I'm really curious about this topic.
Yeah, thanks so much. I love the intro music, by the way. It got me super hyped and excited for our conversation. So really happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited, and I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. And if maybe you could give us a little bit of a background about yourself and your journey and how you got interested in data science and this field in the first place.
Yeah, just like for a quick overview, I always really liked problem solving. I was always, as a child, I was the one who was always asking why. I wanted to know why things work. I wanted to know why we did things a certain way, how it happened, why we made decisions. And so with that, I eventually went to college. I studied math. I studied some computer science courses as well. And through that, found myself gravitating kind of unknowingly even to the more analytical data science type track. We also did a senior thesis at my college, and I chose to do that on a project that combined machine learning and math. And at the end of that, I really had kind of solidified, plus having been in a couple of internships, that like data science analytics was an awesome way that let me be creative and allowed me to use that creativity to find opportunities in data in a way that helped others.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, your background. Let's dive into this whole, idea of being a solo data practitioner. How do you establish clear expectations when you are solo practitioner? Because a lot of people, when you say, like, even when people saw, like when I was sharing this talk with you, people were like, oh, wow, that's so brave and to be so, you know what I mean? So maybe you could share a little bit of how do you like establish clear expectations and maybe some examples in your journey that led to successful outcomes too. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize that like this feeling, and this is not just for people who are solo data scientists, data practitioners. It could be someone who is starting off helping develop data science, machine learning practices in their organization, but it also is those practitioners who are siloed. Maybe they are embedded in a department and they're starting to do this work in a way that hasn't been done before. And those feelings, no matter whether you're solo, whether you're siloed, whether you are starting data science from the ground up in an organization, a lot of the approach is the same. And it really starts off with yourself. So thinking about your expectations for yourself, for your role, what's going to be expected of you, and then what's possible within your organization and with what you have. And then figuring out how to share that with others. And once you have that, setting expectations at the start around what you're doing, what the process looks like, what your goals are when you're working with your stakeholders, what deliverables they can expect, demystifying that process at the beginning so you start to understand that time to value, you stay aligned, you understand that you and your stakeholders, whoever is in this process, you're a team, right? All of you are working together to make this data science process, this work you're doing successful. a lot of times it starts with having a shared language, starting off with that, setting yourself up to manage those assumptions and the expectations on what this process looks like, what data science looks like, what it does and doesn't include. And then also getting everyone on board with being willing to reset expectations, that willingness to reframe a problem, because in the process, right, you're in data too, a lot of times you find things that mean you have to change direction. And if everyone's okay with that, that together you're working towards that goal, maybe with a slightly different approach, but you're still moving in the right direction.
Right. No, that's a great answer. Thank you so much. And speaking of frameworks and things like that, what frameworks do you recommend for data problems, putting them in a way that aligns very closely to organizational goals? And so you could also, easily share them with the stakeholders and all of that.
Yeah, I really love design thinking. I think it applies so well to so many fields, and especially to us as data scientists, data practitioners. It's human-centered. It considers how we integrate the needs of the users, so our stakeholders, our end users, and thinking about how that also ties into the requirements from the business, the criteria, the assumptions we need to make, and the eventual outcomes that we're trying to include. And that kind of mindset, when you apply that to data work, it helps you uncover things along the way. So understanding the problems you're trying to solve, the real problems within that, whether you need a certain approach, the needs of the stakeholders and how you approach that, how you iterate together to get to a solution, understand if you're on the right track, and then reset and continue that cycle in a way that gets you to your goals faster, in a way that's reproducible, and in a way that's transparent to everyone in the process.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think transparency is super important. And that also brings me to the next question is, how do you deal with folks that are not really technical? And how do you explain or try to explain the complex data insights to those folks? Because I feel like that's probably the hardest, because a lot of the time, if they don't understand something, they're not going to approve it, right? So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I feel like that's definitely, I've heard that being a challenge for folks.
Yeah, it is absolutely a challenge. It's a lot of it comes from that, like, data science. If you're coming from analytics, it's mysterious. It takes a long time compared to analytics. So that time to value seems like kind of mysterious, right? You don't know what's going on. You don't know why it takes that long. You also don't know what's going into that process. And so a shared language helps a lot with that, because when you're saying things, the words you're using are going to be understood by someone else in a way that when they go on and they say it to someone else, everyone in that conversation is going to be aligned. So starting off with conversational, almost like guardrails that help you ensure that everyone understands what you're doing. And then as you're actually talking about the work you're doing, I really like thinking about having like a value first approach to how you're communicating. So figuring out what the value that's expected is, how what you're doing aligns with goals, and then as often as you can, tie that back to those goals and make that oftentimes the first thing you're talking about. So sharing the impact really early on when you're giving an update, because unfortunately it's something that takes a little time to get to and to understand. But a lot of times people don't want to hear about your really cool methodology. They want to hear about the impact of that methodology. And so capturing that value early, finding ways to build on it incrementally so that long process becomes more understandable and you can see how you're working together along it.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely great advice. It kind of similar in marketing, because we're in marketing, so I feel like explaining this stuff to people as well, that it takes time. right? For some things to work, right? So it's going back to the goals always works, I feel like, for any kind
Yeah.
of folks that if they understand something from one side or the other. So
Yeah, that's exactly.
I know that you've mentioned some in some of your talks the road trip method for stakeholder engagement. Can you talk a little bit about that? Not like give away too much, but maybe a little tiny bit. How
Yeah.
that this example?
Yeah, this is something I started doing, and I'm sure other people do this as well. But the way that I do it, it's similar to kind of like informational interviews, right? Everyone's familiar with that approach. But basically, it starts off with not assuming that you know what needs to happen, that you already know what the biggest problems are, that you already know what everyone is going to find most valuable. So starting off with the people in your department. This could be if you're solo, if you're siloed, especially, start off with your department and connect with people, figure out what they really need. Think about what the problems are, who knows about them, who could be involved in solving them, and then asking those people who you should talk to next. And so, kind of building out a web of layers. And through that, you'll start to figure out what almost like buckets of interest, what areas of opportunity are the most valuable to folks. And if you can take that to that larger level across your organization, across your department, across multiple verticals, you're going to understand like where those quick wins are. So where you can start to prove the value of what you're doing. And then later on, think about like those long-term ways to differentiate and provide unique value. But like it's a good way to figure out what the scope of what's out there and identify what's going to get people on board.
Right. No, that's great advice. No, thanks so much for sharing that, and we'll save the rest of it for your presentation. And
Yeah, no, not too many spoilers.
yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about you being the head of community at Women in Analytics, and also you being on various boards. And how do you balance all these things that you're doing, the community and your professional life? And what's been the most rewarding out of those things for you?
Yeah, I'll start with what's most rewarding, which is one, just getting to know others in the space, getting to meet a lot of really amazing people. Every time I meet someone new, I also learn something new. And a lot of times, as you stay connected with people, you get to see these other niche areas, what's going on, the cool things that are happening that are like building on a larger scope of what's going on in the industry. And then also getting to support others in their careers. There's been a lot of opportunities for me, not even just mentor people, but to be able to provide things along the way that people have told me were helpful, which is really nice because I've had people that have helped me along the way in my career, often from being involved in similar organizations in similar ways. And I've seen firsthand how valuable that is. So being able to build those connections at different levels. And then I think when you're thinking about like the balance of it all, it's figuring out like the impact you can have and the time you have. And so my involvement in different things has changed over the years to fill like the time that I do have available for that with where I am interested in spending time and where I feel like I am being helpful. So yeah, it's constantly changing, and I feel like everyone involved in extracurriculars probably feels similarly.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's great. And the next question I had for you, what advice would you give data scientists and people that are trying to get into the space? And I'm sure that you give this advice a lot in this community, so maybe you could share it with ours too.
Yeah. One thing is like data science is very data itself. Like every organization in the world has data, even if they don't know yet. Every industry has data. Every field of study that you're going into has a data component, very likely. And so data science itself, data analytics is very interdisciplinary, just inherently the way that data exists in the world. And so there's so many ways for your interests to come out and be able to be part of your career as well. And so that's something just to keep in mind as you're figuring out like what you want to do. And then the other thing I would say is always just like reach out to people. Like it's something that's scary. I knew that's something that was really intimidating, still is intimidating, not gonna lie. But a lot of people really like to hear from you, to know that you've learned something from them. And when you're looking for mentors for support, a lot of times it's the person just one step ahead of where you're at now that's going to be valuable to you. You don't need your mentors to be 10 steps ahead and have that all planned out. But so looking for those people who can provide you that boost to get one step closer to your career goals is oftentimes pretty valuable.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, Lauren, because yes, I think looking for mentors that are not like that, you said those are the people that probably will have more time to give you as well, right? So
absolutely.
Well, and the last question I wanted to ask you is, what are you seeing kind of such, I mean, I know that we've been on this whole Gen AI craze for 18 months now or a little bit longer. What do you see kind of the next thing that's going to happen and what people should look out for the next 5 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing, like you said, Gen AI, the amount of tools that enable you to be more productive with AI are growing. And so, like, I mean, we hear it all the time, but like AI isn't going to replace jobs. People that know how to use AI and can use it to be more productive will. And so, understanding what that looks like in the context of like your role and these subset of things that people can do, because there's three buckets, right? There's the things people can do, there's the things machines can do, and then there in the middle there's the bucket of things both humans and machines can do. And really the things machines can do and that middle bucket could be done to support you in your role by an AI enabled tool. But those things that you as a human, the creativity piece, the strategic thinking piece, those things, if you maximize that ability, you're going to be in a place where you can have a lot more impact while also saving time with some of those other things. And the other thing is that regulations are coming. The EU AI Act just dropped at the beginning of August. And so with that, everyone has a role in that process of moving towards responsible AI. And so having and starting investing in that solid foundation around governance, around those oversight structures is what's really key to enable organizations to build AI responsibly and to make sure that that growth is going to be sustainable.
Right. No, thanks for that. I agree with you 100%. So, but thank you so much for spending time with us today, Lauren, and for sharing your expertise with our audience. It was really a pleasure to have you. And if you enjoyed this session, Lauren is going to be joining us in person in Miami on September 18th. So you could meet her and talk more about this topic. So I'm really excited to see your session. So I'll see you there in person, and you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, Anna.